It's Friday night pizza night. It's homemade. We've got gluten and gluten-free.
This one is a heart.
It's tradition for us to have homemade pizza every Friday night. 2 of us are gluten-free, so we're making it both ways. Makes it way more affordable, and it's really delicious. The first step is to get our yeast going. So we're gonna add a tablespoon yeast to a 1/4 cup of warm water. Then, Jenny, can you add a 1/2 tablespoon of sugar to that?
Mm-hmm.
Good job. Okay, go ahead and stir that in. Perfect, that's good. Okay, we're just gonna set this aside. All right, we've got our aprons because this is a little bit messy. We start the pizza in the morning because it tastes a lot better, according to my husband. If we start it in the morning, I think it's probably because it allows the gluten to develop and rise all day. So the first thing that we're gonna do is grind our flour. We use 6 cups of wheat flour and then just a 1/2 cup of cornmeal. And wheat flour is a lot more nutritious if it's ground freshly, so we're gonna go ahead and grind it up. Now everybody wants their aprons on. Cute, Jenny. The bad thing about this grinder is that it's really loud, but it does grind the grains up really finely, making a really good flour. So here we go. While this was grinding, I realized that I've got the wrong bowl on here. I want to have my bread bowl for my bosh. So I went and grabbed that, get that on here. Now we're gonna pop this open. And I always grind a little bit of extra wheat flour because I can store it in a bag in the freezer and have it for next time. And then that way I don't run short and have to get this running all over again. The next ingredient we need to add is 2 1/4 cups of warm water. After the water, we're gonna go ahead and add our salt. And this recipe calls for 2 1/2 teaspoons of salt. You want to do it, Emma? Just go like that. There you go. Perfect. To get this honey to pour out cleanly into the mixer, we're going to go ahead and microwave it for 20 seconds. Now it's a lot thinner. It's going to pour out perfect. Yeah. All right. Who wants to lick the spoon?
Me!
There you go.
Yeast has been rising.
Here's our 1/3 cup of honey. I'm gonna give this just a little bit of a stir. Yeah, that's a problem. All right, I'm gonna plug it in. All right, let's try that again. I'm gonna give this a little bit of a stir. Now we get to add our flour. We just are gonna add 2 cups of wheat flour. And this is when I always add my 1/2 cup of cornmeal. Mix that up. And now we add the yeast. And then a trick that we do that I learned from my grandma is that we let this sit for 10 minutes before we add the last 3 to 4 cups of flour. So we're gonna go ahead and put this lid on. Wait 10 minutes. All right, now that it's been 10 minutes, I'm gonna go ahead and add 3 to 4 more cups of wheat flour, depending on how the dough is looking. Okay, Emma, you wanna go ahead and add that one? This is what the dough looks like so far. It's still looking really wet, so we're gonna add 1 more cup for a total of 4 cups. This is looking perfect. The dough is clinging to itself and not sticking to the sides of the bowl. So the next step is to turn this on and let it knead for 10 minutes. Clara and I actually need to leave right now for a flute lesson, so Rachel and Emma are gonna turn this off in 10 minutes and make sure the lid is on it, and then we'll let this rise until this afternoon. Yep, timer's going. Thanks, Rachel and Emma. Bye. Bye. We're headed on an RV trip in 2 weeks. And because we're in town for Claire's flute lesson, we decided to head over here and pick up some little trinkets and toys for the kids to play with while we're on our trip. It helps, especially with really long drive days, if they can open a surprise partway through the day. And, oh yeah, Jenny would love this. All right, let's see how this is doing. I just punch it down when it starts to get really high. The kids are outside playing while I'm getting this gluten-free pizza made. Go, Clara, go! The recipe for gluten-free pizza dough is one that we got from a kids cooking class done by Chef Brad. It's just a virtual class and you can still get access to it and get the recipe for yourself. The recipe uses a variety of flours. I'm using brown rice flour, white rice flour, sorghum, and then the other thing you want to make sure you have on hand is some potato starch. Gluten-free recipes often use a lot of eggs, and this one does use 5 eggs. One other ingredient you may not have if you're not used to cooking gluten-free is xanthan gum. This recipe does require it. This pizza dough is going to look a lot more like batter than dough, and that is totally normal for gluten-free. I'm going to mix this batter for 3 minutes before the next step. Timer went off, so this is mixed long enough. This gluten-free batter is really sticky. So I'm going to use parchment paper to form it into a pizza shape. I'm using my largest size cookie scoop. And I'm just going to form it into a circle. To pat this out, I'm just going to get my hand wet and then use my fingers. This pizza dough doesn't rise very much, so whatever thickness I pat it to is the thickness that it will be. I'm gonna save this one for tonight, and with the rest of my dough, I'm gonna go ahead and do the same thing, but I'll stack them on a cookie sheet and save them for another pizza night. This recipe made 4 gluten-free pizzas. 3 of them are about 10 inches, and I'd say the last one is only about 6 or 7 inches. Right, I'm gonna stick these in the freezer so that the next few pizza nights we have will be a little bit easier. Because I had some laundry to catch up on, the kids went for a bike ride this morning, so we're just getting started with our reading right now. And Grant's got his favorite read aloud right now. What is it, Grant?
Last Kids on Earth.
Last Kids on Earth. One tip to making really good homemade pizza is using a pizza stone and preheating the oven for 45 minutes to an hour. I'm gonna go ahead and preheat it at 550 degrees.
Lemonade, crunchy ice. Sip it once, sip it twice. Lemonade, crunchy ice. Sip it once, sip it twice.
The tomato sauce that we're using for both the gluten and the gluten-free pizzas is a homemade sauce. I'm gonna go ahead and use a jar of tomato sauce that we canned this last fall from our homegrown tomatoes. And then I don't measure these out, but I just add, I don't know, about a tablespoon or so of oregano, basil, yeah, why don't you add some pepper, Emma? Go ahead and grind some pepper in there. Clara, can you sprinkle in some garlic powder? Lots of garlic powder, do twice as much. Okay, yeah, that's good. And then salt, and then I do about a tablespoon of brown sugar.
Tell me when.
That's good.
Smells so
Okay, you want to film? Part of the reason that we like to make homemade meals is so that we can travel as a family. It just saves us a little bit of money so that we can use it towards doing fun things. Like this year we're gonna go to the Grand Canyon. Emma's gonna go ahead and add her sauce and her cheese.
So I'm leaving like 1 or 2 slices without cheese because my mom can't have dairy.
I'm gonna go ahead and get out the gluten dough. One great thing about this recipe is it makes 4 little pizzas. So it's enough to feed us dinner tonight, and the kids can also have pizza for leftovers tomorrow for lunch. It's like the gift that just keeps on giving. So I'm gonna put 3 of the sections back in the bowl, and then we're gonna roll out this one. All right. In order for the crust to bake up evenly and crispy, I try to roll it out thin as I possibly can. For a long time, I used to try rolling it out with flour underneath the dough because that's what a lot of recipes said to do. But I find it's actually better if the pizza dough is sticking to the counter because then I can roll it out really thin and it can't bounce back. That's good. All right, then I use this rolling pin to help me transfer it onto some parchment paper. I used to use cornmeal and I just found that that made a mess in the oven. So instead, I just use parchment paper and the only cornmeal is the cornmeal that's in the dough. And then sometimes I do roll it out one more time to get it really, really thin. And now we can go ahead and add our sauce and our cheese.
This is garlic butter with garlic and melted butter. And I'm gonna put it on my pizza crust. It makes it a lot more soft so it's not as hard and dry.
This is the last pizza, and I just wanted to say that I really like making this recipe on Friday nights because I can start it earlier in the day in between doing homeschool. It only takes 10 minutes here or there. And then in the evening when it's time for dinner, it takes about 40 minutes, start to finish.
Is the pizza done yet?
Almost. It looks almost done. Sometimes I like to make shapes out of the pepperoni. This one is a smile, and this one is a heart.
Rachel went out and picked these greens fresh from the garden so Ryan and I could have a salad with our pizza tonight.
What do you guys think?
Is it good?
Yeah.